tell me a little bit about the White House incident, as we will refer to it. What was your thinking as you were planning that moment?
So, when we saw the New York Times article, we very quickly realized that the plan wasn't going to really have a dramatic impact on reducing the epidemic in the United States. And just the facts that were in the Times article, including the 25% reduction in new infections over 5 years, made it real clear to us that in fact, under this plan, we would have a much larger epidemic 5 years from now than what we had today. So we knew that we were going to have to respond in a critical fashion. And at the same time, it was very clear from all of the press releases that were coming out that the entire AIDS community was going to be praising this because we finally had a national plan. And that's when we decided that we had to do some kind of disruption at the White House to make clear that there wasn't a consensus in the AIDS community or the AIDS movement that this plan was such a great and wonderful thing. And I felt it was particularly important that the president hear directly, not through some underling, but that he directly hear from people with AIDS that this plan wasn't going to be successful. So that was the intention of doing it. And in fact, if there had been a photo line or some other opportunity to say it one-on-one, we had agreed we would do it that way. But if there wasn't, that we would do a disruption and that I should do it. I knew before we went in, and certainly once we got in the White House, there was such a self-congratulatory air about the whole event that I knew that doing the action was going to be very, very unpopular, but really felt like it was really important to make the statement. And in doing it in a public way, I knew that the statement would also get out to the media, and the world would know that not everybody thought this plan was the bee's knees.
So what did he say to you?
Well, first he reprimanded me for the manner that I initiated the conversation. I explained to him that I thought it was important that he know that this plan, even if it was successfully implemented, would leave us still losing the battle against AIDS. He said that he knew that it wasn't everything we needed to do, it was just a start, and then proceeded to tout healthcare reform. I responded that healthcare reform that we'd been involved in that, and that unfortunately it was what the ending legislation was not going to be good enough to meet the needs of people with AIDS and HIV, and in the meantime there was a huge gap. He kind of ignored me and started talking about the $30 million for new money for prevention, and I just interrupted him, told him I'd read the plan, I knew how much new money was actually in the plan, it wasn't nearly enough, and that we needed his leadership. And he concluded by saying, making a commitment, well, if it's my leadership that you need, you've got that. So
how did you feel at that moment?
Well, I mean, look, Obama's a very smart politician. I could tell he was quite indignant at the interruption. He was very political in how he managed it. I think he heard my point. Do I believe that that's going to make some huge impact? No, I think this is sort of like everything in the AIDS movement. A lot of what we do is water dripping against the rock. You know, I think it's real clear that we've staked a position that they're going to have to compete against in terms of making this plan actually something that is effective and proving that they've got something that's not just a political document.
Let's talk a little bit about Haiti and how that went down at the conference here.
Sure.
As I understand it, you had sort of planned to do an action, and then you were able to secure a meeting for some of the folks from Haiti?
Yes, we had talked with the folk from Haiti I guess we've been talking since April about the best way to get the issue of Haitians living with AIDS and HIV out to the media and to the public here at the conference. Given former President Clinton's role in overseeing the disbursement of money, we decided that was his speech was the best venue to make a public point. However, we agreed that if we could get a meeting with Clinton here at the conference, or with Paul Farmer, who's now his deputy as the special UN representative, that we would do that in lieu of any kind of public disruption, because what we want to do is get them as allies to change the behavior of the large NGOs and the Haitian government. So Paul Farmer, we wrote Paul Farmer over a month ago, didn't get any responses. Eric Sawyer actually intervened the night before Clinton's speech, and we secured a meeting with Paul, and then he arranged the next morning, right before the speech, for Esther to have a brief meeting with President Clinton where she was able to lay out her issues. I also met with Clinton's scheduler and arranged hopefully a meeting with several key policy people at the Clinton Foundation, and Clinton promised to visit the National Association of People with AIDS in Haiti in his trip there this fall. So we felt that that was incredibly successful. We really couldn't ask for a whole lot more out of that kind of encounter, and we hope if we can actually get him to meet with people with AIDS in Haiti this fall, and if we can meet with some of the senior policy people, we can impact some policy changes. At the same time, we still felt like there needed to be some sort of public manifestation of what the issues were. There was a satellite session in the morning that was embarrassing in the way it was self-congratulatory of Partners in Health and GESCIO for their work. This was a satellite session on AIDS in Haiti, but no people with AIDS in Haiti were invited to be a part of the panel, even though the people who put this together knew that the FAT+ delegation would be here at the conference. So at the conclusion of the session, Esther actually got up and asked, they had talked about partnership with the government, what about partnership with people with AIDS? And for example, why didn't you think to include any people with AIDS in this panel? Edner then got up and announced the demonstration, and so we weren't that big. We were a small group, maybe 25 or so people marching, chanting in Creole, and we were chanting, people with AIDS in Haiti need treatment, need food, need jobs, need housing. So we took over the stage before they could introduce Anthony Fauci, and that gave Esther Busico an opportunity to deliver the type of speech she would have made at the satellite session if she'd been invited to participate, but to the whole plenary. So we were very, very excited to be able to get that kind of visibility for Haiti. We got a very warm response. A number of people gave a standing ovation to Esther's speech, so we really felt like it was a good opportunity to let people know what's happening in Haiti.
Final question. So it can't be easy to be you, you know? It can't be easy to be you. And, you know, a lot of people talk about the nature of activism and where we are today, and you've taken this approach pretty much, I think, throughout your career as an activist. Would you say, could you comment on what it's like to be you and how hard it is, and whether or not this form of activism works. I mean, you continue it, and obviously, for example, in the example you just gave, it was effective, you feel. So.
Well, and using the White House as an example, if you go on the Housing Works blog about it, there's some very angry responses, including from people in the AIDS community who are very upset about this. The only point I would make is that other than a handful of elites who met with Obama before his speech at the reception, I probably had the single longest conversation with the president about his plan, and I was probably the only person there who let the president know that his plan wasn't going to be successful. So I count that as a huge success. I could have gone there and stood like everybody else and been very happy to be at the White House, but then what's the point in going? And if that's what I was there to do, then what I should have done is switch my invitation over to a homeless person with AIDS who would never have that kind of opportunity. So I feel very strongly that if we're going to be successful creating a movement that actually ends the epidemic, hard activism really has to be at the core of it, and any organization, any AIDS organization that doesn't engage in that kind of direct activism and the kind of direct engagement of people living with AIDS and HIV and involving those folk in the issues, then they're no longer in the fight to end AIDS. They're just a part of AIDS Inc., another industry. They're making careers and making a livelihood and not bringing an end to the epidemic.
What's next at the conference?
Oh, we are doing we're doing a slum. I'm actually going to be hoping to sneak around unrecognized as a homeless alcoholic, panhandling for money. But we're actually going to be roaming around tomorrow for about 2.5 hours, setting up our slum at various places to draw attention to the issue of homelessness and HIV. We've now done 2 summits here at the conference in Mexico City and here on homelessness. Very low attention. Most people really do not get the relationship between housing and treatment and housing as prevention, and it's just fundamental. Like a lot of other things, you're not going to end the AIDS epidemic without addressing the social and systemic factors, and homelessness is one of those critical factors that everyone is just ignoring. So we're going to try and rub it in people's faces tomorrow in a way that it won't just be the usual demonstration. They'll actually pay attention. They may get annoyed with us, but hopefully they'll go home and think about it.